In today's world, we don't have to seek out information. It's constantly thrown at us through all of our devices. This means we are exposed to a relentless stream of information that's not always accurate, hijacking our attention capacity.
The solution? Critical ignoring, something that researchers say is now a critical component of our critical thinking abilities. If there's one skill you need to develop this year, this is it. In today's episode, we explain what critical ignoring is and 3 ways to start doing it. Let's dive in.
Today we're talking about the topic of critical ignoring. And when you came across this, I remember we were sitting on my couch and you bring up the topic. You were like, oh, there's this thing called critical ignoring. And I remember I was like half listening and you started to explain what it was. And I was like, wait, go back. Hold on. The concept is really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. And before you explain it, what it is generally to listeners, I want to say that not only do I think that this is a tool that we as adults need to be using, this is something I really want to teach my kids.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Especially like now that my one daughter has a phone and before my other daughter gets a phone, like I do think that they are learning some of it in school, but I really want to sit down and like talk to her about this concept because it's really helpful.
It's critical now.
Yeah.
At
the risk of being repetitive, critical ignoring is critical.
It's all critical. Yes. Yeah. So I ran across this, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, when we were sitting on your couch that day brainstorming topics. And it was an article on the concept of critical ignoring. And I thought, okay, the Wall Street Journal's reporting on it. I mean, it kind of sounded kind of boring, in general, this abstract critical ignoring.
Yeah.
But I thought if the Wall Street Journal is talking about it, and it's done really well for them, maybe this is something we need to look into. And then I started looking into it, and I was like, whoa, I like this. So I'm just going to start off by telling people exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. And then we'll tell you kind of why there's a need for it. And then we're going to give you 3 ways to actively start doing it. So critical ignoring, it's essentially choosing what to ignore, learning how to resist low quality and misleading, yet cognitively attractive information, social media, and deciding where to invest one's limited attentional capacities. Where to invest your attention. And I really feel that attention capacity part.
Yes.
Because in perimenopause, mine are very limited.
Yes.
And I really have gotten to where I can't just let anything have my attention or it's zapped for the day.
Yes. I think the most important part about that line, this is where really understanding how to like employ critical ignoring comes from this. You want to resist misleading yet cognitively attractive information. So we are talking about information that you are drawn to that is
all these articles that I've written, that I've shared, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That's going to get you off track with what you're supposed to be doing.
Or is
now ours are accurate. Let me say this. Ours are accurate.
Is inaccurate because that is a component of it.
Yeah.
That it's either low quality information or it's inaccurate and misleading information.
Yeah.
Because our attention is a very, very limited resource these days.
Well, when I started digging into this, and there's actually a research study or 2 on it, looking at how this need came about really made sense. So this article was talking about how the world comes to people through digital devices. Mm-hmm. It doesn't come to people through newspapers or even books or dictionaries like we had,
Do you remember encyclopedias? I know I just aged us.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
We had a whole collection at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved going to look stuff in the encyclopedia. Yeah. So basically, because it comes to us through digital devices, there's really no longer a need to decide what information to go seek. Because rather than us having to go seek information from hard copies, we're just have information, digital information just thrown in our face constantly. And this relentless stream of information has turned our attention into a resource that becomes kind of seized and exploited, it's said, by advertisers and content creators. So when you invest some time into some of this content that really is not from a reliable source, that is not accurate, it's information you should have ignored in the first place, it means some of your attention has already been used up. And you've wasted your time. And so, the other thing that really came across to me is they were talking about critical thinking and the concept of critical thinking. I work in higher education, and so critical thinking has been a big part of our accreditation. Probably have to demonstrate that you're teaching these students how to think critically in your activities, that kind of stuff. Yes. So that's a big deal. But what this study pointed out is we have trained students, and we were trained this way.
I see my kids learning this way.
That critical thinking and learning is done by reading and processing text. And that was the case when we grew up. And it is done that way. But they were saying it's time to revisit and expand the concept of critical thinking to also include critical ignoring. Because all this information that is thrown in our face, the majority, I would say, on social media, is probably inaccurate or not 100% accurate. And yet we are spending time reading it, where really we should maybe filter out a lot of this. And it would, give us more attention capacity for the day.
It's also influencing how we think and what is important to us.
Yes.
And so, I see it with my kids in the sense of, well, what becomes important to them? What becomes important to them is the kind of content that they consistently consume. I love some self-help stuff on Instagram, right? We've talked about that many times. Well, now I'm getting into the space where I'm like, well, how accurate is that really? Because yes, it might make me feel good, but I don't want to be a pawn in someone's fake self-help, right?
And we all this information that comes at us, your first kind of inclination is to just assume it's accurate.
Correct. Because it comes through reading and text predominantly.
Exactly. So once I started reading about this and kind of, this concept of updating critical thinking and learning, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so true. And critical ignoring is really a skill we have got to learn as adults to save our attention capacity, or at least I do.
Yeah.
And it's something I realize our kids are not taught. And it is so important to start teaching them. And it's really, in this study, they found 3 kind of tactics to use. And these aren't hard. And I think they're very good tactics that everybody and of all ages can use.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna go through those.
The study in general, so just so that listeners are aware, these tactics came from a research study that was published a couple years ago, maybe actually just
2023?
Yeah, 2023. Yeah. So just a little over a year ago. All right. So, Carolyn, tactic number 1.
Okay. I love this one.
Same.
It took me a second to get it. It is referred to as lateral reading. Okay. So basically, essentially, what lateral reading is learning how to not waste time on information from sources that are trustworthy or credible. Well, how do you do that? Okay. And lateral reading is how you do it, but it's a strategy that professional fact checkers have used for years.
Which is very much baked into your and my experience working in publishing.
Yes. We can elaborate on that in a second. But there was a study on fact checkers and how very accomplished fact checkers, what tools they used. And the primary one was lateral reading. And so it's based on the concept that when you look at a source of information, you cannot determine how trustworthy that information is by engaging with it or just reading or reflecting on the content.
How it is written is not necessarily a reflection of its accuracy either. So you can't read it and be like, oh, the author of this or the vocabulary used or the sentence structure automatically makes it.
Well, now, I will judge you if you use bad grammar because my mama was an English teacher.
Okay, well, totally fair. But if it's grammatically correct, if the sentence structure is right, if they use big words, it does not necessarily mean that it was accurate.
No. So, lateral reading. And so if you just read something and then think to yourself, is that right? That's referred to as vertical reading. That's what we don't want to do. We want to get out of the habit of that. We first want to do lateral reading. And it's where you first determine the trustworthiness or credibility of the information before you read the article to determine if you even want to read the article. And I'm just going to say article because it's easy to think of that kind of thing. So essentially what fact checkers do is instead of first focusing on the information in this article from an unfamiliar site or source, they ignore the content. They don't read it until it says they open a new tab. So, you see this article you might want to read. You look at who wrote it, the organization, the person, whatever, and you open a new tab and you search for information on the organization or the individual behind it. And there are some tools, I saw in another article, there are some tools where you can actually check the credibility or, the purpose of the organization, purpose for why they're writing this or, and just, I think there's some credibility grading apps, that kind of thing. But, and so if you do this and what you find suggests, ooh, they might be trying to sell a product or that may be their real intention rather than, educate me, and give me an unbiased feel. So if you get that sense, then you should not waste your time on the content. Reading that content is a waste of your precious time and energy, and you move on.
I would say, alternatively, even if they seem like a credible source and they are not, it's not, affiliated with something being sold, there is a chance that they are speaking out of their expertise. And so what is their expertise? I'm going to make this up. Let's say this is a...
And that is something we really we make a point not to do on this show. We are dietitians and we know our expert areas, but we are very quick to call in someone else when we know this is really out of our specialty. And there's a lot of people who do not do that. There's a lot of personal trainers who want to dip into nutrition and, that kind of thing.
And they might have the ability to do it, but I also think that it's very important that people are forthcoming about, this is not my area of expertise. So, but anyway, if you see that maybe someone is really knowledgeable about exercise and that's their background, but they're then talking to you about nutrition or parenting or something along those lines, maybe push the pause button.
Yeah. Look at their credentials. And, there's a lot of people out there, not knocking them because there are some very good writers, but just in the health space, there's a lot of writers who have no health background, who have just gotten a background in health by writing articles about health topics. And so you really have to be careful. And some of those writers write for big places. So now here's something interesting. So there was a study in 2022, and it was done in an urban school district. And a group of students were given 6 50-minute lessons on lateral reading and strategies. They were taught them how to read laterally, I guess. They found at the end of it that those students who completed the classes were significantly better at judging the credibility of digital content compared to the students who didn't get those classes. And when I read that was when it kind of hit me, and I was like, oh my gosh, my kids probably believe everything they read digitally.
Yes.
I've got to teach them.
Yes. I mean, I have had this conversation with my kids, with my older daughter at least, where she'll come home and she'll say, oh, X, Y, and Z happened. And I'm thinking to myself, And she's talking about more like national news type stuff. And I'm like, that sounds a little questionable.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. I saw it. And I was like, where did you see it?
Yeah.
Where did you see it?
Yeah.
And then we start the process of like, okay, let's Google what you saw and see if we can find news, anyway.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't need to get into it, but yes, it really is.
I had this is just a basic example. I picked up Griffin at a friend's house the other day, and it was late afternoon, and he had one of those Celsius drinks with them.
Oh, yeah.
Which essentially, I think they have caffeine, kind of like an energy drink, but then they don't have sugar in them. I feel like when Madeline was in high school, a lot of the girls were drinking them early in the day to kind of suppress appetite and try to speed up metabolism, that kind of thing. Anyway, he got in the car and he was about to open it. And I was like, please don't drink that right now. And I said, that has more caffeine than a cup of coffee. And he said, it does? And so he did not open it. Now we get in the car the next morning, and he brought it with him, which I don't love, but I did like that he listened to me. Side note, he has ADHD, so he didn't get his coffee. And people with ADHD, they do need kind of a stimulant sometimes.
We very much benefit from that.
Anyway, not my preferred choice of caffeine for him, but he gets in the car and he opens it, and he was like, this tastes like something alcoholic, Mom. Here, taste it. What do you think? And I was like, doesn't really to me. I said, it's really sweet. And he said, well, it's healthy. It doesn't have any sugar. He had just taken these advertisements like, it's healthy, it doesn't have any sugar, like taking it to heart.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was from online or from friends, but it did kind of, I was like, compounding with the stuff I was already reading about critical ignoring. I was like, wow, I've never thought about how they probably believe everything that they see.
Yeah.
We didn't used to have to worry about this because the only inaccurate information was like on the Onion.
Yeah.
And it was so obvious it was inaccurate. But now.
I know. Yeah. Now you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Tactic number 2. Don't feed the trolls.
No.
Sometimes it's not the information that's being fed to you that's the problem, but the people who produce it who need to be actively ignored.
So we were talking about this right before we started recording.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolyn, you made a good point. You were like, I just don't really think that this tip is that helpful.
I just felt like it was kind of obvious.
And I said, I totally see your perspective. But there are a lot of people out there who can get really fired up about something on the internet and go down a rabbit hole posting comments. I mean, think about how many people we've had email us sometimes because they don't like the content of something we created, especially when we worked in doing a lot of like digital articles.
Yeah. I've had some vicious emails. People have looked me up and found my personal email.
Or you think about all of those Facebook groups or the
neighborhood Facebook groups.
Yeah. And now I want to say, because I don't want to make anybody feel bad, I want to say that I can really dive in to some in real life, drama conversations and get fired up about stuff.
You are a little zesty.
I can be a little zesty.
But you do hold your tongue on digital platforms.
Exactly.
Thank goodness.
And so when you were like, I just think this is obvious, I was like, there are a lot of people out there. You and I will see stuff online, and maybe it's because we work in the digital space so much, and we're like, you know what? No. We're not going to be baited. We're not going to get involved. We just walk away from it. Yeah. But a lot of people do. And
do not respond directly to trolls. Do not correct them, engage in debate, mediate, or troll in response. And thank goodness I was way busier than I needed to be, but thank goodness I was too busy to even have the option to possibly comment on stuff on social media in my younger years when I was a little fiery.
Yes.
You know?
True.
I was too busy. Like I was just so it kept me from doing it, and now I'm like, I'm just like, that's completely pointless.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it aggravates me to death when I see somebody putting something inaccurate out about nutrition or something, and it's something controversial. But I'm not about to, get in the middle of that.
Yeah. I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
So it says block trolls, report them to the platform.
Now, I am bad about blocking. I am bad about blocking because sometimes I still want to watch.
Well, I only block
see
if they
it
are
all
coming
unfold.
specifically after me.
I would agree on that.
Yeah.
But you can mute people. You can
I love to
block
snooze people for 30
snooze them.
days.
Yeah. But I will say, I often sometimes still might like to watch from the sidelines, even though I might not engage.
Oh, yeah. I will read through some zesty post on what's happening in Mountain Brook.
Oh, yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay. Tactic number 3. And this is really, really key. They call it self-nudging. And it's essentially organizing your information environment to reduce temptation to consume all this information being thrown at you. So removing distracting and low-quality information. And they give several ways. They say set time limits for social media, which I think is a good one. Mm-hmm. They said convert your screen to grayscale. Do you know what that is?
I don't even know how to do that.
I don't either. I'm going to look into it, though. They said
There's a lot about my phone I don't know how to do, though.
There was a study that it found when people converted it to grayscale that they spent a lot less time on social media. And then it even said consider removing certain social media apps.
I know people who have done that who have been very happy doing that. That is not for me.
Well, when you're a public persona or you have a product out there, I mean, that's the primary mode of advertisement or promotion or awareness.
True.
So it's not an option for people who have businesses or, people who want to promote the sale of their cookbook.
Right. Want to promote their podcast.
Yeah. I would love to do that at times. And I'm like, this isn't an option. So I'll just sit here and not post for a while.
Well, and I will say, too, I think another tactic is sometimes limiting your platforms, right? So, there are people who they're checking Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, Snapchat. I mean, I don't know. And at this point, like, I have greatly limited my social media platforms.
I greatly limit my Facebook reading and interaction. I don't really interact. I just read. But at times, because I feel like it engages people more in conversation and that kind of thing. It stirs up stuff. Whereas Instagram is more pictures and videos, and there's not as much personal interaction.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree. There was another tip from the study that I thought was really interesting, and I am very guilty of this, so this is why I want to share it. Do not use distractions as internal rewards.
Ooh.
And
I do that.
I do it too. I will say that I will allow myself a set period of time on Instagram in the middle of the day
when you get your task done
as a reward for completing a task. I've tried time blocking, and that actually does help. That totally helps. But I have also had times where all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, I think I just lost about 30 minutes
of my day. Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting because I was like, wow, I do that. And if other people do it, that's just something to be mindful of.
Yeah. So they say the goal of self-nudging is not to necessarily optimize your information consumption. I mean, you are trying to choose better information, but it's really rather to offer a range of tactics to help people regain control of their information environment. Regain control of your information environment and align those environments with your goal. I really
love
that. Yeah.
Absolutely love that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this may become a new kind of obsession. My poor kids.
The self-nudging is my favorite tip of all of them, and especially the removing low quality information. There are some accounts that will pop up in my feeds, and I realize even if I like the content that they're talking about, there's no sourcing, and they might be talking about like research studies, blah, blah, blah.
I've had that a lot lately. It drives me crazy, and it will not if it does not tell you the study it came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're these great little graphic
link
posts
somewhere. I should be able to go to that website where that article is and click on the actual scientific study, and a lot of them do not.
Yes, I agree with you. And so a lot of those I have started to, unfollow if I'm following them, but usually just try and tell Instagram, like, this isn't relevant to me.
Yeah. I love the concept of lateral reading. And, I realized, though, I have taken for granted that lateral reading was really ingrained in us in our nutrition training.
And absolutely in the first 6 months of working for a publishing house.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like 101 on the job front there.
Yeah. But it also made me realize, this isn't part of most people's profession.
True. Very good point. But yeah, I mean, what you were just saying, where you go to find the original source, that is a form of lateral reading. That is a form of fact checking.
Okay.
So,
critical ignoring, I think it's going to be my new thing in 2026.
When your daughter texts me and tells me that, she's really unhappy with you and critical ignoring, I'm going to have to say, it's important. You need to listen to her.
I think I've got a lot of work to do with my kids teaching this concept. So,
well, it's a super cool concept. I hope everybody tries it out to save their brain some space and to realign their focus when they need to.
I'm so glad this Wall Street Journal article popped up in my feed.
Me too. Me too. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining us for the Happy Eating Podcast. I'm Brierley Horton.
And I'm Carolyn Williams. If you liked this week's episode, then don't forget to rate and leave us a review on iTunes. And be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a new episode.
We can't wait to have you back at our table next week for a brand new episode. Bye.
The contents discussed in the Happy Eating Podcast, such as advice, studies, text, graphics, images, and other material discussed or presented on the site or podcast, are for informational purposes only. Content is not intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your mental health professional or other qualified health providers with any questions you may have regarding your condition. Never disregard professional advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on the Happy Eating Podcast.
If you are in crisis or think you may have an emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. If you're having suicidal thoughts, call 1-800-273-TALK, that's 8255, to talk to a skilled, trained counselor at the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you are located outside the United States, call your local emergency line immediately.